It all started on a rainy evening when Daniel, a single father juggling two jobs, decided to take his kids out for a small treat at the local diner. His children, Emily and Josh, had been begging for pancakes all week, and though money was tight, Daniel thought a small joy wouldn't hurt. That's when he noticed her, the woman sitting alone in the corner booth, nursing a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. Her clothes were plain, her hands worn, and there was a quiet sadness about her that Daniel couldn't shake. When the waitress came by, Daniel overheard the woman asking for the cheapest meal on the menu, and then splitting it into two portions, as if she would save half for later. Something about that struck him. He thought she might be homeless, or just down on her luck. But there was more in her eyes than just struggle. There was a fire. Daniel, though cautious with his wallet, decided to pay for her meal quietly, asking the waitress not to mention it. When the woman discovered what he had done, she looked over at him, startled. Her lips trembled with gratitude, but her pride held her back from fully thanking him. She simply nodded, her eyes speaking louder than words. His kids noticed too, and Emily whispered, "Dad, why does she look so sad?" Daniel could only answer, "Sometimes people fight battles we don't see." He didn't expect to see her again after that night, but fate had other plans. A week later, Daniel was driving home when his car broke down near the edge of town. With his kids tired and cranky, he pulled over, unsure of what to do. That's when he heard a familiar voice offering help. It was her, the same woman from the diner. She carried a small bag, her coat thin against the cold, but her presence was steady. She helped Daniel push the car to safety, and when he asked her why she was walking alone so late at night, she avoided the question. "Just on my way to check on someone," she said, her voice quiet. Before leaving, she handed Emily a small handmade bracelet, woven from string. "For luck," she whispered. Daniel couldn't shake the mystery of who she was. Over the next few weeks, he noticed her in different parts of town, outside the grocery store, near the bus stop, and even around the school his kids attended. But she wasn't loitering. She was helping. He saw her slip groceries into the hands of a struggling mother, guide an elderly man across the street, and even sit patiently with a child crying on the sidewalk until the parents came. She was everywhere, quietly stitching lives back together, yet no one seemed to know her name. Daniel grew more curious, and one evening, he decided to follow her discreetly, hoping to uncover the truth. The trail led him to an old, abandoned church at the edge of town. Its windows were cracked, and vines curled up its walls, but when Daniel peeked inside, he was stunned. Dozens of people, men, women, children, were gathered inside. Some lay on cots, others huddled together with blankets, and the woman was moving among them, handing out food, water, and medicine from a box she carried. It hit him like lightning. She wasn't just surviving, she was saving others. This run-down church was her secret sanctuary, a shelter for the forgotten souls of the city. Daniel stepped back, overwhelmed. He had thought of her as someone in need, but in reality, she was carrying the weight of dozens of lives on her shoulders. The next day, Daniel confronted her. She froze, unsure whether to deny it or admit everything. Finally, she sighed, her walls crumbling. Her name was Sarah. Once a nurse, she had lost her job after blowing the whistle on corrupt practices at the hospital. Since then, she had been unable to find steady work. But instead of giving up, she poured herself into helping those who had less than her. Every dollar she scraped together went into food or medicine. Every night, while the world slept, she made her rounds to check on her people, as she called them. "I don't want recognition," she told Daniel softly. "I just want them to know they're not invisible." Daniel was shaken. He had always believed his own struggles were heavy, raising kids alone, scraping by paycheck to paycheck. But Sarah's quiet strength humbled him. He wanted to help. That night, after putting his kids to bed, he filled a box with canned goods, blankets, and toys they no longer used. The next evening, he carried it to the church. Sarah's eyes widened, tears glimmering as she whispered, "You don't have to do this." But Daniel only replied, "Maybe not, but I want to." His children soon joined in, excited to share old clothes and books with the kids in the shelter. What began as one man's small act of kindness turned into something far bigger. Weeks turned into months. Daniel and Sarah worked side by side, patching up the broken building, organizing food drives, and creating a place of warmth for those who had nowhere else to go. His kids grew attached to Sarah, who read them stories by candlelight and taught them simple lessons about kindness and courage. Slowly, Daniel realized something. Sarah had not only saved dozens in secret, but she had also saved him and his children from loneliness. In her, he found not just a partner in charity, but perhaps a partner in life. By the end, the old church wasn't just a shelter, it was a beacon of hope. Neighbors began to notice, donations flowed in, and people who had once walked past the forgotten now came to lend a hand. And it all started with one woman's quiet determination and one father's simple act of kindness at a diner. Daniel often looked back and wondered what might have happened if he hadn't paid for that meal. But deep down, he knew the truth. Sometimes the smallest choices open the door to the greatest miracles. Word spread faster than Daniel or Sarah could have imagined. At first, it was a trickle of people, neighbors dropping off bags of rice, teenagers offering to carry supplies, local shopkeepers slipping in cartons of milk. But soon, the church became more than just a hidden refuge. It became the heartbeat of the community. People who had once walked past the broken windows now stepped inside to leave warm meals or blankets. Volunteers painted the cracked walls, replaced broken pews with sturdy benches, and built shelves where donations could be stored. Daniel watched in awe as Sarah, once so guarded and quiet, began to stand tall before groups of strangers, explaining their needs with a voice that carried both authority and compassion. He realized she was no longer just saving lives in secret. Her work had blossomed into a movement of kindness too large to hide. But not everyone welcomed this change. The church, though abandoned, still sat on land technically owned by the city. Bureaucrats began to take notice. Officials argued that the gatherings were unsafe, that the building violated codes, that the presence of homeless families lowered property values. For the first time, Sarah's mission faced the weight of opposition. Letters of eviction arrived, and whispers began that the city would send police to clear the church. Daniel saw the exhaustion in Sarah's eyes as she read each notice, the familiar ache of fighting systems too powerful to move. Yet, even as doubt crept in, she didn't waver. She told Daniel, "They can take the building, but they can't take the love. That's something no law can erase." Still, Daniel knew they couldn't fight alone. Daniel stepped into a role he never thought he'd claim. For years, he had only been a father trying to survive each day. But now he became something more, a voice for the forgotten. He wrote letters to newspapers, spoke at town meetings, and even convinced his children's school to organize food drives. His words weren't fancy, but they were real. If you shut down this shelter, you're not just closing doors, you're shutting out people who have nowhere else to go. The sincerity in his voice struck chords where polished speeches failed. Neighbors rallied behind him. Even those who once turned away from the sight of poverty began to see the faces of mothers, fathers, and children who deserved more than silence. For the first time, Daniel felt what Sarah must have felt all along, that the fight for compassion was worth every struggle. Then came the night everyone feared. Police cars lined up outside the church, red and blue lights flashing against the old stone walls. Officers stepped out, holding orders to shut the shelter down. Panic rippled through the families inside. Children clutched their parents, elders whispered prayers, and Sarah stood in the center of it all, steady but pale. Daniel's heart thundered as he moved beside her. Instead of letting fear win, he gathered everyone in front of the officers. Neighbors poured in too, standing shoulder to shoulder in the rain. No shouting, no violence, just silent defiance. Sarah raised her voice, trembling but firm. "You can arrest me if you must, but you cannot erase what has been built here. These people deserve dignity. They deserve to be seen." Her words hung in the air, heavy as stone. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, one by one, the officers lowered their eyes. That night, no one was taken. The shelter still stood. Weeks later, the city, pressured by the wave of support, granted the old church new status as a community center. Grants followed, and what was once a crumbling ruin became a thriving sanctuary with proper beds, kitchens, and medical supplies. Sarah's once secret mission was now recognized as a lifeline. Daniel watched as his children ran through the halls, their laughter mingling with that of the shelter kids. No longer divided by circumstance, he realized that his life, once small and weary, had been expanded by love, by purpose, by the courage of one woman who refused to give up. And late at night, as he sat on the church steps watching the lights glow from within, he whispered to himself, all of this began with a single meal. He smiled, knowing that miracles weren't always loud or grand. They were built quietly, choice by choice, kindness by kindness, until the world was changed. The transformation of the old church into a community center became more than just a victory. It was a rebirth. Families who once slept on cold concrete floors now had proper beds with warm blankets. Volunteers built a small kitchen where hot meals were served daily, and local doctors donated their time for free medical checkups. The laughter of children filled the halls, echoing off the once broken walls that now stood painted in bright colors. Daniel, once a man who felt his world had shrunk to the boundaries of work and home, found himself walking through the doors every evening with renewed strength. Sarah had become the heart of it all, organizing, teaching, and guiding with tireless determination. And though she was recognized now, her humility never faded. She still knelt beside the smallest child, still carried the heaviest box, still listened to every story as if it was the only one that mattered. Daniel often caught himself wondering how his life had changed so much in so little time. He thought back to the diner, to the simple decision to pay for a stranger's meal. He had no idea then that it would open the door to something larger than himself. Every time he saw his children playing with others at the center, children who had once been hungry, cold, or scared, he realized he wasn't just raising his kids anymore. He was helping raise a community. Emily, his daughter, had even started writing little notes of encouragement to tuck inside food bags. Josh, still young but full of energy, helped set up chairs and sweep the floors, proudly declaring, "This is our second home." Daniel's chest swelled with pride. For years, he had thought he was teaching his children about life. Now he saw that life, through Sarah, was teaching them about love, resilience, and the power of giving. Yet with every triumph came shadows from the past. One evening, as Sarah sorted medical supplies in the back room, a man in a suit entered quietly. Daniel watched from a distance as Sarah's face went pale. The man was a representative from the very hospital where she had once worked and lost everything. He accused her of stealing patients and tarnishing the reputation of the institution. He threatened legal action, claiming she was practicing medicine without proper facilities. For a moment, Sarah's shoulders slumped under the weight of old wounds. But then she looked at Daniel, at the children playing, at the families eating warm soup together. Her voice trembled at first, but grew steady. "I didn't steal anyone. I gave them back their dignity. And if saving lives is a crime, then I will not stop." The man left, but the warning lingered. The battle wasn't over. It was only changing form. Instead of retreating, the community responded with even greater force. Neighbors organized rallies, carrying signs that read compassion is not a crime, and hope lives here. Local journalists picked up the story, broadcasting Sarah's fight across the city. Donations poured in, not just money, but food, clothing, and even professional services. Lawyers offered to defend the center pro bono. Architects sketched plans to repair the roof and expand the halls, and teachers volunteered to start free tutoring sessions for children who had fallen behind in school. For the first time, Sarah allowed herself to lean on others. Daniel stood beside her at every gathering, his children holding her hands as if she was already part of their family. The shelter, once secret and fragile, had now grown into something impossible to erase, a movement wrapped in love, built on the foundation of sacrifice and quiet courage. One night, after everyone had gone to bed and the church hall was silent except for the soft hum of the heater, Daniel found Sarah sitting on the steps outside. Her face was lit by the moon, her expression thoughtful. "Do you ever regret it?" Daniel asked softly, sitting beside her. She shook her head. "No, even when I had nothing, even when I thought I couldn't go on. Helping others gave me strength." "But," she paused, her voice faltering, "what I didn't expect was to find a family here. Your kids. I thought my life was only about saving others. I didn't realize someone might save me too." Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to say everything. How much she meant to him. How she had changed his children's lives. How she had given him purpose again. But for now, he simply reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. As months passed, the community center became a beacon known throughout the region. People traveled from neighboring towns to volunteer, donate, or simply witness the miracle of what had been built from nothing. Sarah, once a woman hidden in the shadows, now stood as a symbol of resilience. Daniel, once a tired father burdened by loneliness, had found a partner who carried his heart as gently as she carried the broken. And the children, both his own and those who found safety in the shelter, grew up learning that compassion was not weakness, but strength. The future was uncertain. Challenges would always come, authorities would always push back, and resources would always be stretched thin. But as Daniel looked at Sarah, at Emily and Josh laughing with their new friends, at the church glowing against the night sky, he knew one truth could never be taken away. From a single meal, a family had been built, and from a single act of kindness, a legacy was born that would outlive them all. Years later, the old church still stood, not as a forgotten ruin, but as a proud reminder of what kindness could build. The walls bore murals painted by children who once lived in fear, but now dreamed boldly of the future. Sarah and Daniel walked the halls not as strangers bound by circumstance, but as partners bound by love and purpose. Emily and Josh had grown, their hearts molded by the lessons of sacrifice and compassion they had witnessed every day. What began as Sarah's secret mission and Daniel's small gesture had blossomed into a haven where no one was turned away, where every voice mattered, and where every hand found something to hold on to. On a quiet evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Daniel stood outside the church with Sarah beside him. The laughter of children floated from within, mingling with the hymns of hope that filled the air. He thought back to that first night at the diner, the rain, the coffee, the meal he had paid for without expecting anything in return. He smiled, knowing that in choosing kindness once, he had unknowingly written the story of his entire life. "All this," he whispered, was never about saving others. It was about finding each other. And with Sarah's hand in his, and the light of the church burning like a star against the night, the story found its end, not in sorrow, but in a legacy of love that would echo for generations.